You're listening to Fox City's Murder and Mayhem, your bi-weekly dose of true crime history in a small rural community of Wisconsin.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fox City's Murder and Mayhem. I'm Eric.
I'm Gavin.
And Gavin, we are back.
We're back.
And we are looking like I got to see a little bit of the notes for this one. And it looks like we got a murder here. Is that
We got
correct?
a murder.
Yeah.
You were peeking.
I was peeking, yes.
Yeah, so first I want to apologize to the listeners and to you.
Because this isn't going to be a very good story, or
No, it's fine. It's a good story. There's some things in here I think are going to be fun to discuss. No, I'm pretty sure we said this on air last time. Maybe not. Maybe I only said it to you. But I had intended that the next episode, meaning this episode, was going to cover a really bizarre federal law.
Yes. And it was like a Shawano murder.
A Shawano murder,
with
yeah. Yes.
Federal law, yeah.
That is not this. So that has been kicked. It'll probably be next time. It's coming, but it got bumped.
Just didn't get quite what you needed for that one?
Just this one just kind of rose up. You never know. I kind of tinker with a few things at the same time. And this one kind of just got there. Sorry.
Peaked, and you're like, this is the one that is ready right now.
This is the one that's ready right now. And this one is going to get me to crack my beverage. So that's a plus. Also, it's a De Pere story. And I don't know. We've been doing this for so long. I don't remember what we do anymore. But I don't remember doing a De Pere story.
I feel like we must have done a De Pere story. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe not.
It seems like, well, there's got to be something by now, but I don't remember. So this is De Pere. Our character to start with, he won't be our character for very long. Our character to start with is a man named Mano Wellington Nuss, which this is a great name. Mano Nuss, not a great name. Middle name Wellington. What a great name.
And then you put them all three together and it's just kind of an average name, right?
Yeah. So he's born, to give you the idea of what time we're working with here, in 1856.
So we're going back a ways.
We're going back a little ways, in Pennsylvania. He married Mary Weiss in Brown County, Wisconsin in 1896. So he was born in Pennsylvania. He comes to Wisconsin. He was 39 at the time. She was 34 at the time of the wedding. I only mention that because in the 1890s, getting married at like 39 and 34, they were kind of behind the average.
Yeah.
It took a little while. Together they had 3 children, George, Gertrude, and Wellington. It's a great name. It's such a great name. On September 2nd, 1912, which happened to be Labor Day that year, Mano Nuss is working as a popcorn vendor in De Pere. I don't know if he's always a popcorn vendor, if that's just like his Labor Day thing, but that's what he's doing at this time. He is murdered around 10:30 p.m. He is struck over the head with a piece of wood. He remained semi-conscious for a little while, so people were able to kind of interact with him, but he does pass away from being hit. He is 56 years old, and he leaves behind his wife and 3 children. The motive was believed to be robbery. So now we're going to switch gears to a man named Harry Edward Sheedy.
And this is the guy that does the robbery, in theory, I'm guessing?
Well, we'll see. Harry Edward Sheedy was arrested for the crime a week later, picked up...
I mean, he's even got a specific spot to open his drink.
Picked up in Kaukauna, where he worked as a lineman for the city's electric light construction crew.
Of course he's picked up in Kaukauna. Right?
That's delicious.
You don't get away with anything in Kaukauna.
No. The chief at the time, Richard McCarty, picked up Sheedy while he was working. So he was actually high up on a pole, putting up like the electrical wires or whatever. in front of the Becker residence on Wisconsin Avenue. McCarty said that he was wanted in De Pere for fighting. Sheedy denied any involvement in a De Pere fight, but, he surrendered, and Chief McCarty took him up to the Green Bay jail.
Okay.
Sheedy had grown up in De Pere. He was briefly married. I'm not sure what happened to his first wife. I could not figure it out. I don't know if they got divorced or if she died. I'm not sure. But she's only around briefly. I don't think they had any kids. On May 10th, 1909, so this is about 3 years earlier than our current incident, a hotel in Wasaki was burned. Sheedy and another man named Martin McDowell were picked up and charged with the crime, allegedly acting as tools for another man in order to collect on the insurance money. But months later, before the trial, the charges against Sheedy were dismissed. So he technically has no criminal record. Back to the present, which is 1912.
Okay.
At the preliminary hearing on September 27th, witnesses said that Nuss, the murder victim, and Sheedy were in the Tune-In Tavern at the same time. They left separately, and later a man matching Sheedy's description was seen running from the injured and later dead man. Mm-hmm. 2 doctors testified that Nuss died from a fractured skull caused by what they thought was a club. As we already kind of established, it's a piece of wood, but the doctors don't know that, Mm-hmm. They're not looking at the crime scene. Sheedy, represented by prominent attorney V.I. Minahan, denied being in the saloon on the night of the murder. He was bound over for trial. So, now we've got our setup, all right?
Okay.
We've got a dead guy, we've got a man picked up for the crime. See how this plays out.
And the guy that was picked up for the crime has, while he's never been convicted of anything, may have a suspicious past.
He may have a suspicious past. Even though the charges were dismissed, I'm sure the police are aware that he was a suspected arsonist at one time.
Yeah.
At the beginning of December, the trial started. Hotel owner August Noller? Sure. Testified early. He explained that the Henry Tune-In Tavern had 2 rear doors. One went outside, and one went into a hallway that connected to a cigar store and to the hotel. The hotel was called the California House. Noller was able to show that Sheedy stayed in the hotel on Saturday night and Sunday night, but did not stay there on Monday night, the night of the murder. But we've at least established he is in the area at the time. Prosecutors showed him the piece of wood believed to be used as the murder weapon. Noller acknowledged, "This looks like the kind of wood that I keep stacked up behind the hotel. Whether this specific piece of wood came from my woodpile, I couldn't tell you, but it does look like the kind of wood that I have back there." I don't know. When you give somebody a piece of wood that they're using to keep the fires burning, how they identify where the wood came from, I don't know. But the idea here is that if the wood used to kill the guy is right behind the hotel, presumably whoever did it came out of the hotel or the attached bar, rather than came from somewhere else.
Right.
That's the reason this is going to be relevant. Some doctors testified about conducting the post-mortem. Really nothing too interesting here. They found some abrasions on him, which kind of looked like he'd put his arm up to defend himself. And then he has, a fractured skull from being hit. So nothing really out of the ordinary, just what you would expect from a guy who is getting attacked by a piece of wood. Mm-hmm. So nothing strange there. The only thing there that jumps out at me is that the doctor who does the examination is Dr. Minahan, who is the brother of the defense attorney. There's nothing shady about that at all. I just think it's interesting that one of the witnesses is the brother to the defense. Seems kind of odd, but I mean, what are you going to do? We talked about the Minahan family a while back. I think we did 2 parts on that. There's one that
wasn't the Minahan one of the Titanic people?
Yep. So we did a Titanic episode, and we did one that's sort of loosely based off a book called The Maid and the Socialite, which is from author Linda Drews. Recommend it. Martin Hainan, the first person to see Nuss after the attack, testified. He said he got there in time to hear someone running away, but did not know if they ran north or turned onto James Street. Hainan identified the piece of wood as the likely murder weapon. Hainan was questioned heavily by the attorney, the defense attorney, and it seemed like he was confused on many of the details. He was able to identify a woman named Mrs. Miller as the one who ran to call the police, but he did get a few things mixed up on the cross-examination. Which this is why Attorney Minahan is a great defense attorney, because he's gonna. This is the goal here, is to get the jury to hear this guy saying "I don't know," or giving 2 different versions of the same thing. And that is not to say the guy is a liar. I mean, that's just how kind of memories work.
Right.
But it doesn't sound good when you hear that coming out of, like, the courtroom.
Yep.
A man named Bert Miller testified that he spoke to Nuss after the attack, and Nuss said that somebody hit him, but he had no idea who it was and did not see the person. Miller said that there were impressions of shoes in the mud, but the ground was so soft that it would be hard to say how big the feet were that made them, because they would be sliding around and, pushing the footprints out. Miller said the wood used as the weapon could have come from the place that they say it did, but it may also have come from a pile near George Street. If so, the assailant would have come from the other direction, not from the tavern. Miller told the court on the evening 3 men from the steamship Pioneer had docked at the Wells dock and were in the Zimdar saloon. There was some trouble with those men, and Miller believed that one of them, a nicely dressed man in a slouch hat with a chain hanging from his lapel, was actually the real killer. I do not know what a slouch hat is. Henry Hainan also testified to talking to Nuss after the assault, and he said Nuss told him there was a picture of the assailant in his mind. Nuss told Hainan that something glittered on the man's chest like a badge. Questioned by the defense attorney, Hainan denied that he heard Nuss say that the man who killed him was in Toonan's tavern that day. So now we're, to catch people up here, we're getting 2 different stories. We got one person who says he talks to Nuss, and Nuss says, I don't know who hit me, and I didn't see him. And the second guy says he talked to Nuss, and Nuss says, I have a picture in my mind of what this guy looks like, which would indicate he very clearly saw him. Mm-hmm. So we've got 2 different people both claiming to have talked to him after being hit, and getting 2 very different stories.
Interesting.
Joseph Manders said he saw both Nuss and Sheedy in the tavern and both leave out the same door. He said Sheedy had 1 drink, did not loiter in the tavern. Henry Toonan, the owner, also said he saw both men in his establishment that night. William Roeder of De Pere said he saw Nuss and Sheedy in the tavern, but did not see them leave. He did not recall what Nuss was wearing, but he could describe Sheedy if he needed to. So here we've established from a handful of people that most likely both the victim and the alleged killer are in the tavern.
And the alleged killer did at one point say he wasn't even in the tavern, didn't he?
He did say that,
okay.
Yes. Mrs. August Baden testified that Sheedy was the killer, telling the courtroom, that man looks just the same to me as the man looked to me that night who I saw running away. Chief of Police testified that Sheedy told him he was not in Toonan's tavern when Nuss was, despite the proprietor saying that he was. Catherine Devroy, who was with Sheedy before the murder, testified that she visited him in jail and asked him to confess, and he told her that he would think it over.
Well played. Okay.
So according to her, He's not quite admitting it, but it definitely sounds like he's not denying it to her either. While the case is in trial, the district attorney secured the help of Detective Thomas McGregor of the Gordon Detective Bureau in Milwaukee. Now, for people who do not know, this is 1912. There's like no such thing yet as the FBI. So it was really common for people to hire like detective agents. The famous one is like Pinkerton, but there's other ones. And this is what you would do. Because, if you're a local police department, you don't want to send an officer all over the country looking for things. Mm-hmm. So it's really common to have private detective agencies do this stuff. So they hire a guy out of Milwaukee, and they don't hire him to go far away. They actually hire him to stay nearby, but they want him because nobody in De Pere knows who he is.
Okay.
They get this detective out of Milwaukee. They put him in the Brown County Jail, and he went under the name Jack. While he's in there, Jack makes friends with Sheedy. After 3 days, Jack told Sheedy that he had made bail and was going to a dance that night. Sheedy, who by this point after 3 days trusted him, asked him to deliver a letter to Catherine Deveroy. Instead, the detective turned the letter over to the prosecutor.
So now, did you mention who is Catherine Deveroy?
So she's the woman who was with him before the murder. And then who asked him to confess, and he said he'd think it over.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's his girlfriend or just a female acquaintance, but it's apparently the young woman who he spends time with when he's in De Pere. As the trial switched to the defense, Sheedy took the stand on his own behalf. He was asked the last time that he wrote a letter to Catherine Deveroy, and he said it was probably 7 to 10 days ago. At this time, the prosecutor pulled out the letter. He said, aha, it was not 7 to 10 days ago. It was yesterday. Sheedy admitted that this letter was his, and he says, well, I didn't count that letter because she didn't receive it yet.
Well played, well played.
He's like, I couldn't be sure that it was delivered or even would be delivered. So, I'm not going to say on the stand that I wrote to her yesterday without her having gotten it. I mean, interesting point, right?
Well, it is kind of, because he could be like, well, if I would have said I wrote her yesterday and she had testified that last time she got a letter was a week ago,
yeah,
that could be like a huge problem for her.
If I write you a letter, but I didn't actually put it in the mailbox, did I write you a letter? I mean, yes, but also no.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. The note was Sheedy telling Deveroy that he was nothing more than a tramp, and if he was freed, he would reform his ways. Nowhere in the letter did he actually admit any wrongdoing. His defense was that he was in the hotel, and he was in the cigar shop, but then afterwards he wandered a bit until heading to a saloon across the river to wait for the trolley. When he reached Kaukauna, he went to the south side and went to bed. No point was he anywhere near this crime scene. The defense called William Robertson, another saloon owner. Robertson said that Sheedy was in his tavern on the late evening of Labor Day and waited there for the 11 p.m. trolley to Kaukauna. Which, by the way, I don't know if the listeners know this. There used to be a trolley that ran from Kaukauna to Green Bay and a second one that ran from Kaukauna to at least Appleton. I don't know if it went farther than that, but at least Appleton. And
it would be so nice if they still existed, man.
Yeah. So it was like, I was a little surprised to learn that they went as late as 11 o'clock at night. but that was the thing. Because again, this is 1912. You have to keep reminding people did not have cars.
Yeah.
So, if you want, and this was like a popular time to like stop at dance halls. There were a number of dance halls like out in the country. And then people from De Pere could go and people from Kaukauna could go and they'd meet up. And you don't hear this so much anymore, but you'll hear like old time people. Yeah, you'll see this in old obituaries. It'll be like, they met at a dance out at such and such. And then so like if you're like, man, how did my grandpa from this town start dating my grandma from this town? It could be they both hopped on the trolley
and got to a
and
dance.
met at a dance.
Nice.
And after they had a dance, well, then they got to get married, So, anyway, another man named Lester Duquette also testified that he saw Sheedy in the cigar store. Now, if he's in the cigar store, let me again remind you that there's supposed to be 2 doors in the back of the saloon. One of them goes into the hallway to the cigar store, and one of them goes out in the back into the streets.
Okay.
So the argument is that both the victim and the alleged killer went out the back. The victim was killed out back and hit with a piece of wood. If Sheedy is in the cigar store, he didn't go out back into the street. He went out the other back door and went to the cigar store. So he wouldn't have been outside in the back.
Interesting.
So if he's seen in the cigar store, he's probably not out in the street.
Okay.
The case was sent to the jury by Judge Hastings on the evening of December 7th. They were out for 41 hours, from 6 p.m. one day until 9 a.m. 2 days later, and they came back with their verdict. What is their verdict, Eric?
Well, based on the cigar store theory, I feel like it should be not guilty.
Is that what you're going with?
Yeah, I guess.
It is not guilty.
It is not guilty.
It is not guilty.
So now, this one blows my mind because now, so this guy had this, and then he had the, what was it, arson thing?
Yeah.
Earlier in the thing. Gets off on both counts. And then just like...
He never even went to trial on the arson. They dropped the charges before it went to trial.
How do you get that? How do you get so unlucky to get sucked into 2 things you didn't do, and then also get lucky enough to not be found guilty for either one of them? That's just a weird dynamic to me.
I can't really speak on the arson one. On this one, so this is what I want is like the big takeaway from this episode. There's nothing that's like really jumps out as like super unusual about this case to me. But what I think is important is eyewitness testimony. Mm-hmm. Like, I think a lot of people who are into true crime, like, this is not going to be a surprise to them. Eyewitness testimony is unreliable.
Extremely, yes.
Yeah, like, you might think you remember something, but your details are going to be wrong later. Say somebody was wearing a red shirt and they might have been wearing a blue shirt. You're not going to remember everything correctly. Mm-hmm. That's not really a big secret. But the thing is what do you do in this case? There's no DNA. There's no fingerprints. There's no cameras. There's nothing. And that's what gets me is like so many of these at the time had to rely on people seeing the crime. And as soon as you've got 5 people who had some, I'm just saying this is a random number. 5 people and 3 people say one thing and 2 people say the other. If you're going to go off the idea that someone's innocent until proven guilty and there's the whole reasonable doubt and all that thing, I think it'd be really hard to convict somebody, because what do you do in this situation? Like, I'm not saying he's not the killer. I have no idea. He could be the killer. It could be the guy who saw him in the cigar shop was mistaken. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he saw another guy who looked like him. Maybe he's confused on the timing. I don't know.
Yeah, and you know what? It would be like maybe I missed this and you said this, but the guy that saw him in the cigar shop, does he know this guy well? Because I feel like if you know the guy, you know exactly who he is. It would be like if you saw him in the cigar shop, I think that'd be reasonable to say that he's probably right, that he saw him. But if they're just showing did you see this man in the cigar shop? And he's like, yeah, I think I did. That's extremely unreliable.
Right.
You know?
Right. I agree 100%. And I get the impression that nobody here actually knows him personally. I think you're exactly right. I mean, if I run into you at a store, I'm going to know that I'm talking to you.
Right.
So later when they're like, did you see Eric in the store? I'm going to be like, yeah. I'm not going to have accidentally have had a conversation with the guy that I thought was Eric. So yeah, like you're absolutely right. But I get the impression that nobody here like actually, other than his female friend, nobody here actually knows him.
Yeah, and if that's the case, that makes it, everything is very suspect. Like he could very well be the guy. So
yeah, I mean, on top of the fact, so like this guy, the victim here, is hit with a piece of wood. It's 10:30 at night. I don't know what the streetlight situation is in De Pere in 1912.
But it's probably not very good. It's 1912.
Yeah,
so.
It's probably not very good. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, if you see the guy, what did you see? You saw like it's a man and he's like 5'8". Like that narrows it down, you know? So I don't know what it is that people think they saw. So that's what I want people to get out of this. I mean, if you like the story in general, that's great. But like, it blows my mind how much murder trials had to rely on the most unreliable possible evidence.
But it was the only evidence.
It was the only evidence,
right?
It was the only evidence. Like, I'm not saying that what they did is the wrong way. It's like that's what you had to do. But like, I can't imagine the unreliability of that. How many people who were killers getting off because of unreliable testimony? How many people who weren't killers getting convicted because of unreliable testimony? How many people never getting picked up for murder in the first place because nobody knows what they saw? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just, like, how are we running things?
And you really think about it too. Like in this scenario, I think you listed off at least like 3 people that said they saw him in the tavern.
Yes.
And now we're in a tavern here, so everybody's drinking.
Yeah.
Typically, I'm gonna go with, what is this? You said this is at like 10:30 at night. I think of, in my head, taverns usually kind of not pitch black at night, but they're dark. They're dark, right?
Yeah.
And so you're drinking, it's dark, and let's be honest, when you're in a tavern drinking, you're not paying attention to what's going on around you, really. So
right.
So like I mean, there are times when I'm in my youth where I was in a tavern and my best friend could have walked by me and I would have never even realized it because my mind was just not paying attention to what's happening.
Yeah, totally.
So just think about how unreliable that is.
Yeah.
Like, that is scary unreliable.
Yeah, the last time I was in a bar was last Christmas, so, a few months ago now. And I could tell you for sure who I was there with. I could tell you that. I could tell you who the bartender was. And there was one other guy in there who I knew because I used to work with him. So I could tell you that he was in there. But there were probably 20 other people in that bar. And if you showed me a photo of somebody that was in that bar the next day, I could not tell you if they were there.
Yeah.
The very next day, I would not know if they were in the room with me, even though I was there, over an hour.
And you're right, man. That is terrifying. That is absolutely terrifying, especially when you watch some of this stuff and you see, like, because, I mean, cops can tend to be pushy to get the information they want out of you.
Sure.
So, like, and I'm only going to imagine back in the 1912s, because this was the only way they got the information they needed, that they were that much pushier.
I don't want to say across the board, but some I would say definitely were.
I think that it's very possible because it was that much more important.
Yeah.
And
I would say, I mean, my reading is in some places, and I would say Kakana would be one of those places, it was a lot more laid back. Like, being a police officer was a very casual thing. Mm-hmm. But yes, at the same time, when it's a situation that involves a murder, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, they used to have what, I'm sure you've heard this, they used to have what's called the third degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know what that means, like literally what that means.
It doesn't sound good, though.
No, like I know it means they rough people up.
Okay.
But I don't know why it's called third degree. But like that, now that's considered illegal. Like, if you can prove that you got assaulted in the interview room, that's not good. But that used to kind of be the way.
Yeah,
like,
and I mean, let's face it, everybody has their breaking point.
Yeah.
You know, like, if you push them far enough, they're just going to tell you whatever you want to hear to make the situation end. So yeah, that's a really, really scary prospect. Thank God for DNA now, so that, like, it's a little bit easier if something like that happens to debunk it through DNA or some other, you know, something where you can definitively say, look, it's not me, you know?
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so that's, I guess we had the conversation I wanted to have, because that's to me what jumps out is you know, like, there's more information out there. If I really wanted to, I could dig up old court transcripts and stuff. I don't get, throwing an episode together in a week or week and a half, I don't got time to dig into all that stuff. But based on what is available to me, I can't tell you if he's the killer or not.
Yeah.
I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. And that is kind of a scary thing when a guy is in a courtroom and you have a 50-50 opinion of whether he killed somebody.
Right.
Like, that's not great.
And it would be really interested to see, like, so in this era,
yeah,
was this just kind of an open shut case? Like, they knew he was going to be convicted? Because you're right. Like,
but he wasn't convicted.
Or, I'm sorry, like, but you get what I'm saying. Like, where does this play on? Was this a very questionable trial? I mean, I guess it was, because he inevitably got off for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this is, like, typical. I think certainly there's times where it's much more obvious. Yeah. You know, they'll say that, like, motive doesn't matter. Like now, like, you don't have to prove a motive to prove somebody did something, right?
Right.
But I think it does help to understand a motive to kind of get you to that point. That to me was my first piece of doubt on this, is the motivation apparently is robbery. Mm-hmm. These guys do not know each other. It's kind of a spur of the moment thing, it looks like, and the motive is alleged to be robbery. Now, not to say that doesn't happen, that somebody automatically, like, was like, hey, I'm going to hit this guy and take his money. Like, people do the weirdest random things all the time. But it does strike me as unusual in that this guy, Sheedy, he's got a regular full-time job. He's in Kaukauna. He's working as an electrician. He's got a house there, or at least he's renting. You know, he's established. He's making enough money that he travels to De Pere on the weekends to kind of go and have a good time, and then he comes back to Kaukauna to go to work on Monday. I don't know, like, his personality quirks, but the little bit that I do know about him, like, he seems stable.
Yeah,
he's not desperate to get a popcorn vendor's money.
Yeah, exactly. So, and plus he's also following him outside of a bar, which, I mean, yeah, you're going to have money on you, but I mean,
yeah,
I don't feel that that's a really big score either. You know, so if your sole motivation is robbing the person, it seems like you would rob somebody in a different situation,
yeah.
I guess.
So I would lean against him being the killer, but I don't know, like, because I don't know this guy. Maybe he's just has momentary lapses of judgment where he does dumb things. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the other part is that without actually knowing the person's personality, I mean,
yeah,
people do weird things sometimes.
Yeah.
Just depending on, it could just be, you don't know what his mindset was when he went into that bar and started drinking.
I don't know.
You know.
But here's the bottom line of the whole thing. There's a man who is hit with a piece of wood and he dies, and the killer is never caught.
Yeah. Something that, well, I'm going to guess in 19 whatever, That wasn't that uncommon.
It wasn't that uncommon, but think about that. Whether it's either Sheedy and he gets acquitted, so he goes about the rest of his life, gets married again, has a family, never gets really in trouble again, just whatever. But always in the back of the mind, he's like, I killed a guy. Or there's some other guy who killed a man that night and is walking around De Pere just being like, nobody ever got me. I killed a guy. Like, that's not great. So,
I mean, we should be fair. Just because you get away with murder doesn't mean you walk around and say, I killed a guy and got away with it. You know?
No. But I'm just like, but you think about the time, like, not that people don't get away with murder now. They definitely do. But I feel like that was so much more likely then. So how many killers were walking around?
It's kind of creepy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, all right. Should we wrap this one up?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Well, we want to thank everybody for their continued support of this podcast. And we will be back in 2 weeks with hopefully the Shano.
Probably the Shano one.
Shano murder with a weird law.
A very, I think it's a bizarre law.
So hang tight for that. We'll see everybody in 2 weeks. And thanks again for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Fox City's Murder and Mayhem. Join us in 2 weeks for another exciting episode of Murder and Mayhem.